For a man to do something like this for $20, and it was premeditated because he stalked her prior to this for a week or two, knew her routine. They had two ladies working in the library, and often they had to make errands and run out, do other things. So he timed it just right. He followed her to the First American Bank and thought that she had money. When he got back, it was 8:30, put a gun to her head. First, it went through, probably through her hand and into her chin, into her head. Then he shot her, 8 more times. What a violent act.
We are about to watch another classic, and this is a commutation hearing for a man who senselessly took a life for just a few dollars. We are going to hear from the victim's family. We are going to hear from the DA, and we are also going to hear a hot mic at the end. With that, let's jump in.
Madam Chairman, fellow board members, this afternoon we have Edward G. CREAUX,
Yes,
DOC 91. Mr. CREAUX?
yes, sir.
Just listen to the presentation.
Yes, sir.
And if I ask you a question, you answer it, okay?
Yes, sir.
We have Mr. Edward G. CREAUX, DOC number 91067.
Yes, sir.
Is he?
What I'm doing wrong?
Let Mr. Roshi do the presentation.
Oh my God. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm a little nervous. Sorry.
This afternoon seeking a recommendation for a commutation of sentence for the offense of first-degree murder in St. Charles Parish in 1978. He is classified as a first felony offender. He is currently 62 years old. At the time of the offense, he was 19. The applicant has been incarcerated for the last 43 and a half years. On October 20th, 1978, the applicant, doing an armed robbery, did knowingly shoot and murder Mrs. Catherine Landesh at the Holmesville Library in St. Charles Parish. 1 week later, the St. Charles Parish grand jury in the 29th JDC indicted the offender for armed robbery and 1 count of first-degree murder. Eight months later, on June 20th, 1979, the case had a change of venue to Terrebonne Parish, where Mr. CREAUX was only indicted on the first-degree murder charge. A trial started on November 12, 1979, and the next day, November 13, the offender pleaded guilty to the first-degree murder charge and was sentenced to life at DOC without benefit of probation, parole, or suspension in sentence. A note, the armed robbery netted only in 1 account $50, with the accounts in the letters from the victim's family said that the armed robbery netted only $20. And the most tragic thing about this whole offense was the life it netted the life of Miss Catherine. For the record, Miss Catherine worked in the library in St. Charles Parish to help supplement the pay of her husband to support her family. Opposition in this case comes from the entire legal communities, of St. Charles and Terrebonne parishes. We have a letter from the DA's office in St. Charles Parish. We have a letter from the St. Charles Parish Sheriff, Mr. Joe Chesson. I'm sorry, that is the DA's office, Mr. Joe Chesson. We have a letter from the St. Charles Parish Sheriff, also Mr. Champagne. And we have letters from all law enforcement officers, and the judge of the 22nd JDC is also in opposition. The letter from Sheriff's Office is Mr. Sheriff Greg Champagne. We also have opposition from the victim's family. The victim's son, Mr. James Landesh III, the victim's sister, the victim's daughter, Ms. Sherry Landesh, the victim's daughter-in-law, Ms. Denise Landesh, and from the victim's niece, Ms. Gwendolyn DuPont. We have letters from the victim's goddaughter, Ms. Mary E. Landesh, which is also her niece. We have letters from the victim's sister, Ms. Mary Ann Landesh, and another niece, Ms. Jane L. Myers. We have a letter from the victim's brother-in-law, Mr. Roger Landesh, and many, many, many more statements of opposition to any clemency from Mr. CREAUX. I've been on this board for 6.5 years. I have not seen the outpouring of opposition for any offender requesting clemency. Not only did they voice their opposition, they wrote statements and submitted over 10 letters of opposition. This was a very small, tight-knit community, and everyone knew the victim was Catherine, and this was a senseless crime for only $20. This is the only arrest on the offender's criminal record, because he was 19 years old at the time of the offense. Mr. CREAUX had a low risk assessment. He's housed in minimum custody. He has a good institutional record, and he's currently enrolled in GED classes. How is that GED going, Mr. CREAUX?
It's going fine, sir. I'm on D level.
You're on D level.
Yes, sir.
And when do you anticipate getting that GED?
As soon as we can get cranked up beyond the COVID-19 pandemic, sir, I will be able to maintain and obtain that GED.
I understand that you work in the kitchen,
Yes, sir.
you have some training in culinary arts,
Yes, sir.
and you have some training in food preparation service. Is that true?
Yes, sir.
And why are you classified as a dishwasher?
Because at times we have shorthanded, and I step up and go beyond the call of duty to make sure that everything goes to operational plan, sir.
And what is your official classification? What is your official job?
Culinary right now, dishwasher.
Dishwasher.
Yes, sir.
So you have training in culinary arts and food preparation. And how long have you been a dishwasher?
Ooh, right at this time period here, 10 years.
So that tells me something, that you have training,
Yes, sir.
culinary arts, and you are qualified to serve food, but you have been a dishwasher for 10 years.
Yes, sir.
You have a total of 46 write-ups and 43 years of incarceration. The last one being in November of 2002, some 20 years ago. Is that about right?
Yes, sir.
Programs you completed, 100 hours pre-release, anger management, thinking for a change, victim awareness, victim accountability letter, and Malachi Dash.
Yes, sir.
Tell me 3 things you got from victim awareness.
Victim awareness. That class, that class taught me empathy. It taught me empathy, understanding, and that class taught me empathy, understanding other person's feelings, and not just as my own.
It's a hero. Do
Yes,
you
sir.
realize what you did to the victim's family?
Yes, sir.
Tell me what you did to the victim's family.
I didn't really understand it. Tell me, speak again. I can't hear it really.
Tell me what you think the effects on this family was after you killed the glue that kept this family together.
Yes, sir. What I did was foolish. Taking the life of another human being. A mother and a father lost their daughter, and a husband lost his wife. I was a very foolish young man, and I'm very, very remorseful and take full responsibility for my actions.
Mr. Kiro,
Yes,
would
sir.
you be surprised? Would you be surprised? 42 years later, you still have a emotionally, physical, and mental effect on this family?
Yes, sir.
Over the last 40 years, they have lost family members because a father had taken the loss of his wife and started drinking, and in some cases, mistreating his own children because he couldn't compare their efforts to take the roles of their mother and One did the cooking, one did the laundry, one did the housekeeping, but it never met his expectation of the level of what Miss Catherine would do when she was living.
Yes, sir.
Causing the daughters to abuse alcohol and drugs. Two of her children are deceased basically because they couldn't cope with losing their mother.
Yes, sir.
It was devastating, the effects that your crime for $20 did to a family over a period of 40 years.
Yes, sir.
You have no idea. You have participation with a club called RC Club. Tell me about the RC Club.
The RC Club, I used to
Yes.
help. Yes, sir. I used to help cook in that club. I cooked in that club for 7 years. Help preparing food, serving people on death row, making sure the meals got prepared to be distributed to the visitors when they came to see their people, their family.
Okay. I see where you have a transition plan with your sister in Boutique, Louisiana. Is that true?
Yes, sir.
But I also found out that the victim's family lives in Luling, Louisiana. And I don't think Boutique is going to work. Even if you release, if I was on the parole panel, I would not release you to Boutique, Louisiana.
Yes, sir.
In too close proximity to the victim's family, which is still suffering the effects of your crime. So I need to rethink your transition plan, and I would consider a transition plan that was at least 150 miles away from St. Charles Parish.
Yes, sir.
And once you find a location, you need to work on an employment plan. Now, I'm not saying you have to do that, but if I was on your parole panel, I would not release you to Louisiana.
Yes, sir.
You understand what I'm trying to tell you?
Yes, sir.
If you ever were released, in difference to that victim's family, I would not release you anywhere around St. Charles Parish.
Yes, sir.
So let's talk about your drug and alcohol issues. When did you start using illegal drugs and consuming alcohol?
Excuse me, sir. I don't know how to answer this one. I never did was an alcohol abuser or a drug abuser.
You never
No.
used alcohol.
No, sir.
Did you use illegal drugs?
No, sir.
So at 19 years old, you just took it upon yourself, no drugs involved, no alcohol involved, and you said you picked the library because the women, or you might say the old women, brought their purses to the library, and they were good persons, easy to rob, and you thought you would go to the library where Miss Catherine worked as a librarian and thought it was easy pickings. Is that true?
Yes, sir.
So you weren't high on drugs, you weren't intoxicated with alcohol, you just thought to rob somebody to make easy money.
Yes, sir.
What was your need for money?
Work was poor at the time. And I couldn't really find a real good stable job.
You were in a small community. Everybody knew everybody. You could find a job someplace. You could have been cutting grass. You could have been washing cars. You could have worked at McDonald's. Why did you have to rob someone who's easy picking?
I don't know. I take full responsibility for my actions, sir. And I'm very, very remorseful for what I've done.
Warden Falco, do you have any comments, remarks, or observations at this time?
First, the only thing that I can add is the determination of his job as a dishwasher. If the camp does not give us specifically what the inmate is doing in the kitchen, it's more of a generic classifying them as a dishwasher. It's not to say that he's constantly in the scullery. He may be doing other things. It's just that is a generic job description for a kitchen worker that's not a pot cook or a broil cook, that sort of thing.
So it's a go-to classification. He works somewhere in the kitchen doing different things on different days.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Warden Falco. Madam Chairman, I do have a recommendation in this case, and I will share with my fellow board members at the conclusion of this interview.
I don't see any other questions here, so we'll go and hear from those who are here in support. Could we hear from Ms. Charlene Sandoff? There you go, ma'am. Ms. Charlene?
Yes,
Go ahead, ma'am. We'd like to hear what you'd like us to know.
yes. I can't justify what he done at the time. I was 15 years old at the time. My deepest sympathy and condolences go out at the family. At the time of the situation that happened, we had just lost our mother in that October of 1978. Was close to my mom, and like I said, I can justify. I was 15 at the time. My condolences go out to the family, and basically, I don't know what his intents were, what possessed him to do what he did. I heard him say that at the time we were poor, which we were not. We was middle class like every average other family. He was employed, I believe, at the present time with Auto Candies in the Zalmans. I'm not sure, but like I said, at the time when this happened, I was 15. Prior to that, in October 78, we lost our mother. And like I said, my condolences go out to the family. And basically, I can't speak on anything else at the time, because basically that's all I can say at the moment. Basically, I'm just saying what I know, what I feel in my heart. I love my brother. And like I said, that particular day, both families lost. And I understand they lost their mother, his wife, sister. And like I said, my condolences go out to the family. And like I said, at the time, I was like 15 when it happened. And basically, that's all I can speak about on this situation. And that's all I have to say about the situation at the time. And I thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Sandoff. We appreciate your comments. Could we hear from the Reverend Henry Boyd?
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to sharing this hearing. As it dates back, I worked in the courthouse from the assessor's office to the sheriff's office. Most of the people you mentioned from St. Charles Parish in relationship to government, I know them all. I know them all well. I remember the day that this incident happened. I was working in the courthouse at the time. And it just goes back to the fact that I sent the letter stating my view on the clemency piece of it. As Edward, I've known him since he was 3 years old. They rented a house from my father 50 feet from our house in New Sarpy, Louisiana. And as I said in my letter, we did things that normal children do in a small community. We had fun, we laughed, we played. And after moving on to Baton Rouge, I kind of lost the immediate contact. And what my whole purpose in writing the letter to you was to state that I know nothing. I know nothing prior to the incident that happened in 1978 that would preclude him from being considered. Okay, understanding that I could never justify what happened, but I know of nothing in his past, with the exception of that could make matters any worse.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for your remarks. We do appreciate it. At this time, we'll hear from the opposition, from the DA's office, Mr. Byrd.
Good afternoon. I've listened to the statements and also the statement by Mr. CREAUX. And Mr. Roche asked him, I believe it was for 3 things regarding about dealing with this issue or confronting it. And the first thing he said was empathy. And it was given an opportunity, and he continued to say empathy until he got to a canned statement where he indicated remorse. Well, remorse is the first thing that should have been indicated by Mr. CREAUX. But I don't know that remorse exists, because this was cold-blooded, a cold-blooded murder for $20. And this was not something, he shot Miss Landash in the face to take away a purse for $20. I will indicate to you that based on what I've heard, there's nothing that would indicate that Mr. CREAUX is entitled to clemency, and our office strenuously objects to any clemency in this matter. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the board.
Thank you, Mr. Byrd. Mr. James Landash. Go ahead, sir.
Can you see me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. My name is James Landash. They call me Boy. This has been a long process for us. We received this letter 2 months ago, and I kind of got with my wife, and we never talked much about what happened to my mama. But she did know a little bit from my dad. Talked about it, and he said, "Oh, you know, talk about what we're gonna do, you know." And we just kept going on, and I really didn't know that much about a letter. Didn't know much about a parole, and I had to ask people, and they told me what it was about. And I started asking around for help, and we kind of went from one paper trail to another paper trail. We did research, we did a lot of work. And I kept hearing, the parole board. I YouTube the parole board and hear what y'all had to say. I kept telling myself, we need more help. So I started calling some of the family members, and they didn't know nothing about it because I just really didn't think I wanted them to know. And I talked to my uncle, and he said, yeah, I'll help you. We'll get on a Zoom meeting. That's when me and him talked. But the more I listened to y'all with the board and all the cases that were coming before me, I kept just telling myself, hey, I don't want to see Mr. CREAUX get out. So I got with my other cousin, Gwen, and then we discussed the situation, and we said, hey, we need to get the family together and make a decision on what we're gonna do. So we told everybody what was going on. And we said, look, y'all need to voice your opinion. Whatever y'all think, whatever y'all got on your mind, whatever y'all feel, write a letter. Write a letter and send it in. You know? And we did all that. And I just want to show you a picture of my mom. This was my mom. That man took the life of my mom. You know? All long and hard, you know? You know, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot about other things I didn't even know. As a young person and us, we were kept out of a lot of it. And as we continue to learn about what it was and what happened, it rehashed a lot of memories that, you know, that was sprung back up in a real painful situation in my life. And I just want y'all to know that, you know, Mom was a good person. She took care of us. She worked hard. She did anything she needed to take care of us. When we were bad, she disciplined us. I mean, and it just wasn't no little discipline neither. You spent time. You hear me? And she made us do everything, all our chores, and made us do everything that we needed to do to survive, for us to be a better person. And I just want to thank the board for giving me the opportunity to talk. I also want to thank the board that if you release this man, we fear for our well-being, Lord. We fear that he may do harm to us and our family, Lord. That's all I'm asking you, Lord, just to keep him in, Lord. And I thank you and the parole board for listening to us. Thank you.
Mr. Landash, Mr. Roche has a question.
Mr. Landash, good afternoon.
How you doing, sir?
I want to let you know that all your efforts in gathering your family and submitting letters to the pardon board was not in vain. I read each and every word of each letter. I'm almost sure my colleagues did too. And I understand every word that was relayed to us, and your efforts were not in vain.
Sorry, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Landash. Could we hear from Ms. Sherry Landash Muller?
Hi, can y'all see me? Can you hear me? I was 15 at the time that my mom died, and the day she died, I was at school, and I got called to the principal's office. And you know, me never being called to the principal's office, I was thinking, "What? Oh my God, what did I do wrong?" And so when I got into the principal's office, the principal had to tell me what happened. And my first thought was, well, where is she? Is she, you know, what hospital is she in? And he had to tell me, you know, that she had died. And so at that point, it was like I went numb. It was very difficult. He took away our mom, and, you know, my brother was 18 at the time. My sister was 17, I was 15, and I had a younger sister, 14. And I just can't understand how someone, when they go to rob someone or when they want to rob people for money, will go to a library and try to attempt to rob someone where there's no cash in a library at all. And my mom and my dad, we were not wealthy people. We, they made good livings, but we lived a very modest life. My mom never had a lot of money on her because she spent all her money on her kids. She sacrificed for us. She gave us everything we need, not everything we wanted, but we got everything we needed. This was a brutal crime. He went in there and he shot her over 9 times. And at the funeral, I remember I can still see the bullet holes in her forehead that they were not able to cover up. At 15, even 16, 17, 18, we were not babies, but we missed the opportunity to spend a lifetime with our mom. When we got married, I've lost children. I didn't have my mom there to console me. When I've had my own birth, my own children, my grandmother my children will never know their grandmother. And it was just devastating. My 2 sisters, one of them had alcohol abuse. The other sister, she just recently died, and she has been battling depression and drug abuse for over 20 years. And I know that she suffered a great deal after my mom died, because she was still very young. My dad, we all had to pick up the slack. Like, my older sister, she had to take care of the bills, and and learn. We all had to learn how to cook. We all had to learn how to. I was just learning to drive. We had to grow up way too fast. And and one of the things is just what I feel most sorry for is my mom was only 38. She was 38 years. She had a whole life, and he just took that away from her. He just and she was here that morning when we went to school that morning. She was there, and that afternoon she wasn't. And that's very, very devastating. And one of the things that really hits me is that I think about if she was standing there with a gun pointed at her, and I wondered if she tried to fight or if she was scared for her life. I just don't know how that feeling would be if I was standing there with someone knowing that this was going to be the end, and my mom was a very kind of a feisty person. And I don't know if she tried to fight or if she was scared to death or if he just shot her down just to get rid of her, or whatever. So all of those things kind of, just make me really afraid. And I just don't understand what would make someone do that kind of stuff. I have forgiven him in my heart, but I still do not feel as though it's right to let him out, because the crime was so brutal. And then he also dragged her body and tried to hide the evidence and dragged it to the back of the library. He also returned to the scene of the crime, which makes me think that I don't know what he was thinking. So I'm thankful that y'all are letting me speak. I know that my 2 sisters' lives and our lives would have been terrible, but would have been very different had we had our mom here, and we miss her. And it's in y'all hands and God's hands now. And I just appreciate y'all letting us talk and say my feelings. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Joe.
Yes, thank you for letting me be here. Like Sherry said, that she was a young 38 years old, very outgoing, very loving. We miss her. She's the one that took us everywhere to Mardi Gras, any function. We love her. I have another brother that's living and two sisters, but they're older now. We didn't want to involve them in it because of fear of them having some issues. But for a man to do something like this for $20, and it was premeditated because he stalked her prior to this for a week or two. Knew her routine. They had two ladies working in the library, and often they had to make errands and run out, do other things. So he timed it just right. He followed her to the First American Bank and thought that she had money. When he got back, it was 8:30. Put a gun to her head. First, it went through, probably through her hand and into her chin, into her head. Then he shot her, 8 more times. What a violent act. At first, the siblings wanted the death penalty. But with the agreement we made was that my mama wanted him to have life in prison without the benefit of parole. And here we are today, fighting for the same principle. Society has changed in the wrong way. So we can help justify this. I don't know what else to say. I'm very saddened. We spent a day through hell today. Thank you. Please don't give her pardon. Please don't give him. I beg you, don't do it. Thank you.
Yes, sir. You, Mr. Eden. And then we have Sheriff Greg Champagne. Sheriff?
Thank you, Ms. Chairman, Madam Chairman. The first I heard about this was a few weeks ago when James Landesh, who spoke to you just a few minutes ago, came over to my front door. I had no idea what he was there for, but his demeanor was pretty much exactly what I just saw here. This crime is one of those, and by the way, it was a couple of years after that when I started my career as an assistant DA here in St. Charles Parish, and I've dealt with some of the most brutal crimes that you can imagine. A couple of them even resulted in capital punishment being implemented. This may not be the worst, but it's certainly within the top 2 or 3. This one shook this community to its very foundation. I stayed on all day and I listened to most of your cases that you heard today. And I heard some inmates that I believe truly are remorseful and probably have been since the beginning. I don't know Mr. CREAUX personally. And sometimes you can't always judge somebody by the demeanor or what they say, but as an ADA, I actually dealt with some writ applications he filed. So he pled guilty, from what we understand, to escape the possibility of capital punishment, murder, and an armed robbery. It could have been life or death plus 99, if that's the case. But yet, if you're remorseful, he's filed numerous petitions, some as recent as the last 5 or 6 years, which the courts have thrown out as frivolous. And I can't reconcile, if you're truly, truly remorseful, why would you keep using those methods just to try to get out of it? And again, maybe that's just, I'm gonna do whatever I can, I'm gonna try it, but I just wonder, and I don't know him well enough to really make that judgment. Only one person can do that. But I can tell you that this crime shook this parish to its very core, one of several. And, Mr. CREAUX got his break. He got a big break. He's here today. He can talk to his family. So I oppose clemency in this case strongly.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Sheriff. All right, Mr. CREAUX, is there a statement you'd like to make to the board before we vote?
Yes, ma'am. I would like to say to the Landesh family that I was a young 19-year-old that took the life of Miss Landesh. I was a young, foolish young man that took the wrong way in life. I'm now a 62-year-old man that is very, very remorseful for what I've done. I ask the Landesh family if they could find in their heart. I pray. I ask for forgiveness. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. CREAUX. I think the board will be, is ready to vote. We'll start with Mr. Roche.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Before I start, I want to apologize to Sheriff Champagne. I mispronounced your name at the beginning. Thank you for being here today, Sheriff. Mr. CREAUX,
Yes, sir.
based upon overwhelming express opposition from the entire legal community, the judge, the DA's office in St. Charles and Terrebonne Parish, opposition expressed from the sheriff's office in St. Charles Parish, victim opposition. We have 10+ letters of opposition strongly opposing any clemency in this case. We have a family who has suffered over 40 years, is still mentally, emotionally, and physically affected by this heinous crime. In a recommendation of a commutation of sentence would only compound their suffering. I myself will not, cannot, and will not inflict additional suffering on this family. For all the above reasons, I'm going to deny your request.
Thank you, Mr. Roche. Mr. Marabella.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. First off, I'd like to say to the Landish family, Sheriff, and all of those who have spoken here today, I appreciate the courage of you being here, and I appreciate your sharing your stories and pain and grief that you suffered. No one, regardless of what happens today, no one can ever remove the suffering and pain you have received. I recognize that. I look at Mr. CREAUX and I see a man who was 19 years old at the time, who is now 62 years old. He served 43 and a half years in prison. Low risk, he's minimum custody. He's done 100 hours of pre-release, done anger management, Malachi Dads, thanking for a change. He's enrolled in his GED. He's done victim accountability, victim awareness. He's had 46 write-ups in 43 and a half years, the last being 2002. As a member of this pardon board, it's my responsibility to look at all of the facts. And of course, crime itself is one of the things that we take into account. Certainly, we take into account what the victims have gone through and what they say to us. But our responsibility is different than the prosecutors, than the judge, and the legislature. Our job is to look at all of the facts, including, probably more particularly, who Mr. CREAUX is today. And after looking at all of that, looking at the amount of time that he served, his age currently, the age he was at the time, and what he's accomplished while he's been in prison, my vote today would be to commute to 99 years with immediate parole eligibility. That is just my vote.
Thank you, Mr. Marabella. Mr. Freeman.
This one is a very, very tough case, especially with all that the victims have gone through and the tragedy that they've suffered since. But as Mr. Marabella stated, we have to look at the person he is now. And after 43.5 years, I think he's done well in prison. And I also vote to grant with 99 years of immediate eligibility.
Mr. Freeman, Ms. Jackson. Mr. Hero, this is extremely difficult.
Yes, ma'am.
I've listened to the Landesh family, see their pain, see the devastation that this has caused that family. And I don't disregard that in any way whatsoever. Can't even imagine what it's been like for them. But you know, I have to come back to some of the comments that Judge Marabella made. Who anyone is at 19 isn't who they are at 62, 63. People change, people mature, people grow up, people become wiser, people become more empathetic. And I don't think that you were very good at articulating your feelings about what you've done. I just think some people are more expressive than others, have the ability to put things into words a little better than others. But I don't doubt that you regret what you did in the home of your causes. And in all honesty, really, there's nothing you could ever do to make up for the loss in the home that they experienced. But what you have done is demonstrate that you have grown, you have changed, you are not the 19-year-old that committed to harm. And so today, my vote likewise would be to recommend commutation sentence 99 years with immediate parole.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
That's Mr. CREAUX, I've listened very carefully to everybody who's spoken today. And I agree with all my colleagues have said how difficult this case has been. I will say this, I don't believe that you've been altogether forthcoming with us today. Just based on what I've listened to. My vote today, because of the opposition that's been expressed here today, my vote today is to deny your application. So you've received 3 favorable votes. The 2 votes that were not favorable. So the outcome of today's proceeding is that your application for clemency has been denied. So good luck to you, sir. Wish you well.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so let's unpack this. And I'm also going to reveal the hot mic with you. And I just stumbled across this hot mic as I was listening to this hearing. I left it running in the background and then I heard the voices. And I have to say, I felt validated listening to this because I was thinking the exact same thing. And you just have to trust me on this, I guess. And maybe you were too. And what it was when his supporters started to talk, and it's the same, butterfly, turtles, rainbows, nonsense before the real passion comes in from the victims. But there was something that stuck out, which was when his sister started to talk, and his sister said, basically didn't do him any favors. She said nothing positive. It started off with, we weren't poor, we were rich, and have him do whatever you think should be done. And it was like, wow, that's maybe it's not all turtles and butterflies, but I wouldn't have had her show up. And anyways, listen to the hot mic. This is the board was about to start their next case, which we'll watch later, not tonight, but we'll watch it. And they started with these comments. Listen up.
Yeah, we do. Yeah,
About Ronnie Hill, Cam didn't speak of that
yeah, we do too, in favor.
too.
His sister's what got me. He's got a sister.
Oh, she was.
Oh, look, that was-
She
that
said-
was a representative.
Yeah, she said he wasn't really telling the truth. They were not poor. They were middle
Middle
class.
class, yeah.
And there was something else she said that like, let us know when you're ready, Teresa.
Why some of them leave their family members at home.
You definitely, you shouldn't have used her. That was, you know.
Oh, I don't know why she did that.
She did, that's the thing that she said.
What you have? You lied.
They're not muted. Huh, you ready? You're not muted. Oh.
We are not muted there at the end, and we'll watch this case. It's an interesting one. It really is. But before we, I'm not going to watch it tonight, but I'll put a link in the description if I can remember to do that. So again, you couldn't see their image while they were saying that. They were just in the background. And it's interesting because Ms. Renatza denied. And she came in to save the day because they would have made the recommendation to the governor with just a Mr. O'Shea statement. And it does seem to me that Ms. Renatza picked up on what the sister said and that they felt that he was lying, and she might have granted otherwise. And like Mr. Marabella said, they should have left her at home. So isn't that interesting? At least to me it is. And I love that we kind of had that opportunity to hear the board talk about it. It was almost like they really were granting simply based on the fact of how old he was and how much time he served, and that there's some type of agenda to release inmates from prison. Regardless of whether he was lying or not, unless they just missed those points. I don't know, but Mr. O'Shea, no, I mean, thank God for him, because how can you grant when you have the victims come up there and they're so emotional and they're so full of just pure passion and emotion that I feel like he brings you to the verge of tears. Then it's like as the story unfolds and the layers of the onion are pulled off and you hear from each of the victims and you hear from the DA, and then you realize that he stalks her. This is premeditated. He shows up. He unloads his gun into her completely. Tries to hide her body, and he does it all for what, $20? $20? Are you kidding me? And then he lies at the beginning, right? Which he doesn't even realize that it's a dumb lie, which is, oh, I'm completely sober. I have no drug problems. I just did, it's like, at least say that you're totally like, your mind is, and I assume he's lying because he lied about everything else. But maybe he wasn't. His sister comes on and says, we were a good family. We were a middle-class family. There were no problems. I mean, who knows? But what to believe. Either way, he doesn't realize that it benefited him to just, there's something wrong. How can you go and then you find out she's 38, and I'm just like, oh my God, she's a baby. It's so young. 38 to be working at the library. Who robs a library? Who brings a gun? She's alone. You didn't need to do, it's just madness. To release him is, I think, irresponsible. And I'm happy he was denied, because I don't know how there are parts of the board that were going to release him. It's so shocking to me. You have the family that's clearly in pain, and you have a man that lies the entire hearing. What redeeming factor is there? What makes you feel that he, and again, it was trying to even to talk about empathy. He couldn't. It was just like the DA said, there was nothing there. He couldn't even conceptualize it. Man, it's just, and just to hear Mr. O'Shea say the things he says, the kind words to the victims, letting them know he read all the statements, letting them know, it's there's something special about them, and I miss him. And we do have Miss Stapleton, who's the new victims advocate, and she's good too, and I'm sure she'll grow on us more as time goes on. So yeah, this hearing took place in 2022, and anyone's allowed to ask for a commutation. Commutation hearings are baked into the law, and it's something that victims don't realize when they take plea deals. We don't have appeals on this because he just took a plea deal. He took a plea deal immediately, really, because they want to avoid the ultimate punishment. And they don't realize how the law is written because the DAs and attorneys don't tell them, because they don't want the victims to know that within just 10 years, they can force them to show up to hearing. And that's how the law is written. And let's go through it for a second. So this is how it works. Now, it depends on the type of crime, but we'll go through that. But basically, in Louisiana, only the governor can grant a commutation of sentence after favorable recommendation by the pardon board, right? We know that. Now, here's the eligibility. Here's what you need to be able to do to come up in front of the pardon board. So you need to be incarcerated. If you're okay, an incarcerated offender who is not serving a life sentence may request a commutation sentence after serving a minimum of 10 years. Must have a disciplinary-free report for a period of 24 months, and must not be classified in maximum custody status. Must possess a marketable job skill, either through previous employment history or through successful completion. And a statement of the penalty now appears to be excessive, a recommendation to term considered. Now, F, life sentences. An offender sentenced to life may not apply until he has served 15 years from the date of the sentence, unless he has sufficient evidence which would have caused to have been found not guilty. So again, someone who is serving a non-life sentence after 10 years can apply for this hearing that we just watched, and someone given a life sentence can apply after 15 years. Now, do people know this? It seems that no one really understands this when they make these plea deals. Now, the way that it works is that's just not a long time. You can do the most horrible thing, get a 99-year sentence. It's not life. And in 10 years, you could be forcing the victim to show up for a commutation hearing. Now, this is what the process, this is the form, what they do to fill it out. So here's the timeline. Once a completed application is submitted, the commutation will be placed on the next available docket. Depending on the date of receiving the applications, the next available docket may be 30 to 45 days. And it's a very short period of time that they notify the DAs and the victims. Also, often we hear that people only receive the notifications a few months in advance. If you can imagine that. And this is it. So if you're in Angola and you've murdered someone or done something horrible, you would fill this out. You would list every list the following, every other name in which you've been known. Are you a U.S. citizen? It's almost like, just supplying, I don't know, for anything, right? Have you had a commutation before? If so, when? Overview of the offenses, case number and dockets. Were the victims, yes or no? If so, how many? And this is great. We just saw a case where the man murdered his wife in front of his kids, and this was great. Yeah, that could be taken out of context. Mr. Roche reviewed his application, and they said, "How many victims did you have?" And he listed 4 victims. Did you know the victims? Yes. And he put them, all his kids, in there, but he never listed his wife as the victim. And Mr. O'Shea called it out at the end, and he said, "Sir, you didn't even list your wife as the victim." I'll try to remember to put the link to that hearing in the description, but I often forget because I upload them, and then I have to usually make edits after I upload them, and then it could be a month later before I play it. But where the other person's involved in the crimes listed, then you name the accomplices, then do you have an entertainer? You have to fill out all this information. Then you have to put in your own words the account of the offense, which we see so often people mess up here, if you want to say that. Reason for seeking commutation, prior criminal record, and biographical information, children's ages. And yeah, you go, it's like a classic form. Just fill out all the info. Oh man, and that's it. And then if you get approved, which is really just checking the prior boxes, which is not a lot, you got to drag the family out there. And that's just part of the process. And if you ask me, 10 years or 15 years is not long enough for some of these offenses. You might say 25 years. You might say, the minimum sentence that they're meant to serve. But in some of these cases, their minimum is life. So I get that's maybe a problem. But there you have it. And this was one of those just gut-wrenching hearings where it's just a senseless life is taken, and then they're dragged through the mud. The family has to go through all that pain, and could you believe it that Miss Renata saved the day? And she didn't stop the victims from talking either, right? This was a win-win for Miss Renata. Stop talking, Renata. So there you have it. And with that, I'll let you go.